Welcome to Fast Politics, Randi Weingarten.
How are you?
I am in the Morning Joe green room wearing curlers. So I'm great. But we wanted to make this happen this week because there's just a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
And the thing we really want to talk about was what's happening at the DNC. You'd left the DNC. You are one of the great labor leaders, right? You will be studied in history books. You lead the teachers union. You are a champion for teachers' rights, but you also served in the DNC in this sort of advisory capacity. I would love you to talk about why you left the DNC.
I'm not going to go through all the ins and outs and the what happened because that's not I'm really a proud Democrat and I've been on the DNC since I think 2002 and on the Rules and Bylaws Committee since 2009. And that's a long time in,
Mhm.
in political life. That's a very long time. What both Lee Saunders and I decided was that we would not, after we were asked to be reappointed, we would decline the reappointment. And we both sent letters in doing that and didn't intend those letters to be public. But what happened is I talked to my members and got around. And, so I basically gave the letter to the New York Times and frankly asked them, the New York Times figured it out. And I asked them to wait until No Kings before they put it out. So that's essentially the timing of what happened. The letters were dated. My letter was dated early June. The issue that I am focused on right now, and you saw it, my letter had, the line in the letter was that it was clear that, I had a different view about how to enlarge the tent in terms of the Democratic Party. And frankly, when you have a different view and it's clear that the chairman doesn't, has a different view than you, I got a lot of work to do. And so I decided to do it outside of the party. That's essentially what I said. That's essentially what I thought. That's what the last 6 months have looked like to me. And that's why I did what I did. The dilemma I have is this: the conversation right now should be about what we as Democrats need to do, including the party, not an internecine
Mhm.
squabble about who said what to who. And
Right.
right now, the reconciliation bill, it's so
Okay.
bad for regular people. It's such a huge shift of
Right.
wealth from the poor and the working class to the wealthy.
Yeah.
The party should be all in on this right now. There should be a surround sound to what, you know, Schumer and the Democrats are doing in the Senate, to what Jeffries and the Democrats were doing in the House, because the more people know about this bill, the more they hate it. So this bill is a study in contrast between who Trump really is and what he's
Mhm.
trying to do in the country. And that's what the DSC should be doing constantly right now. Like every single letter, an ad campaign, talk to the people around the country about it. And since Ken actually has, this great relationship with all these state party chairs, do a 50 state strategy right now. So that's an example, a clear example to me. Like, the four unions, NEA, SEIU, AFT, ASME, we put a bunch of money in to actually educate the public and to try to lobby Congress to not cut rural hospitals and to not cut Medicaid. That's what the Democratic Party should be doing too.
Is some of this an ideological debate between whether or not the DNC is supposed to be storing up state? And I'm not pushing back because
Yeah.
this is like a real question because I don't think anyone really knows what the DNC is supposed to be. Is the DNC supposed to be storing up state parties? Or is it supposed to be a sort of larger top line, messaging apparatus? And if so, what is it supposed to be and what has it historically been?
If we're having that conversation right now, publicly or privately,
Right.
the Democrats have lost the debate.
Right.
Every organ of the Democratic Party right now, in response to the last election, The policies that we propose, in my judgment, I mean, I've been a Democrat all my life, are 1,000% better
Oh,
in
yeah.
terms of how we help create a better life and the opportunity, land of the free and home of the brave, America, how we
Yeah.
create an opportunity for all Americans,
Oh, yeah.
marginalized and those who are not marginalized. When there's a debate about whether the party is supposed to be calling balls and strikes in terms of a presidential election or shoring up the 50, parties all across the country, then what's happening is American people say, oh, you're talking about your little club and you're
Right.
not actually focusing on my needs. I think that the clear message from the last election, because I think Biden was a transformational president. If you look at the
Yeah.
economic foundations, what he tried to do with industrial policy, how he tried to move things, and you can't move things in a day. And in fact, even
Mhm.
this no new polling is showing that even though people don't like what Trump is doing economically, if it's explained to people, people are willing to give a president a benefit of the doubt if it's communicated about
Yeah.
what they're trying to do. Biden was doing that. It wasn't
Yeah.
explained to people. People didn't see what the Democrats were doing. They connected, enough people, unfortunately, connected to Trump and, his emotional connection to them
Right.
as opposed to what Biden did. So my view is that the party, just like a union, you have to operate and do four things at the same time. You have
Yeah.
to actually communicate with people about who we are and what we're doing and why, and be people's champions. I don't care who
Yeah.
you are within the Democratic Party.
That's really true. So I know that there are ads right now on television about the BBB, right? The big beautiful bill, which is bullshit. And it polls very badly. It polls badly
My
with
God, I thought when you
Republicans.
said BBB, I thought you said you were talking about Build Back Better.
No, no. The big beautiful bill,
Yeah,
which got
the
through
big
the
ugly,
which
the big
right,
ugly, as
which
I
got
call
through the House,
it. Yeah.
but is now having a lot of problems in the Senate. So the polling is just awful. It's bad. If the public polling, the private polling, bad, bad, bad. And basically, what this bill does grows the deficit and also just cuts and cuts and
It
cuts.
does it does 4 things, but it does 4 things that are really terrible. First, there is no coherent strategy on how you build and grow the economy. The economy in the United States of America, for working people, you have to do 2 things. You have to grow it and you have to make it more fair. You have to do both of those things at the same time. And this bill does neither. What it
Yeah.
essentially is, it is a shift. It's a further shift of income or of wealth from the poor to the wealthy. And it does that by not only keeping all the corporate and the business, I'm sorry, all the wealthy tax cuts from 2017, but it doesn't actually do any of the things that incentivizes the tax system to grow the economy. And in fact, it hurts it because all of those things that were helping with the Inflation Reduction Act and tax credits and whatever to build new green economy, it cuts that. So it doesn't help on the economy. Number two, it's a shift of income from the poor to the wealthy. Number three, it really, really, really hurts people in rural hospitals and our grandparents who you need to use Medicaid to be in nursing homes. So it's going to hurt kids. It's going to hurt rural hospitals. It's going to hurt our grandparents. It's going to hurt or our parents. It's going to hurt all of that. Number four, it kills the nutritional programs. And the fifth
Right.
one,
SNAP,
that
which is food stamps for
food
children.
stamps and all the nutrition programs for children. So it's really, really hurts kids. It does. It's also, there's a terrible voucher piece on it, but I want to get to the last piece, which nobody knows. It really is a terrible measure that hurts security and safety of people because what it does, there's a hidden provision in there that says states can no longer do anything in terms of the the guardrails
Regulation for AI.
of AI. How is it that you can actually tell states we can't protect people against a machine And the federal government is doing nothing about it. It essentially says to
Yeah.
people who want to make a surveillance state, here's the green light to do it. And so we never regulated this social media. We gave
Ever,
social
ever.
media the immunity. And look at what is happening in terms of attention of our kids. Look what is happening in terms of the
Mhm.
algorithms, the addictive quality of this. And now, hidden in this bill is basically saying, okay, big tech, you can do everything you want with AI. It is an anti safety bill, it is a way of shifting wealth, and it
Mhm.
really hurts the people who need government to work for them. And it does nothing to help spur on innovation in the economy. In fact, I would say it hurts it. That's why we have to educate people on this bill and use every organ we can to do that.
I wonder how much of where we are is an inability or refusal on the part of government to regulate really anything. Can can you talk about that? Like, we have technology, I actually was at a party where I heard a United States senator complaining about how there's no fact checking on the internet. And I thought to myself, well, isn't that odd? A person who could have regulated fact checking on the internet, complaining about how there's no fact checking on the internet. Would you sort of talk through how our electeds, both on the left and the right, have refused to provide any regulation?
What unfortunately has happened in government in so many ways is that the bureaucracy seems to get in the way of progress. And I say this as a school teacher whose members many times hate the bureaucracy and hate a whole bunch of rules and regulations that are thrown at them that create a lot of paperwork. And I think most Americans, probably since Reagan, kind of experience government as not being efficient. And as a result, kind of are what gets obscured is all the important things that government does. So I want to start that way because of course we need regulation. Of course we need guardrails. Of course we need things to create a level playing field. And that's what government is supposed to do. You want the guardrails to make sure that planes fly safely. Like,
Right.
no one would question the regulations about making sure that planes fly safely or the
Well,
regular.
oh, wow.
Well,
Maybe,
I
but
should
yes.
exactly.
Yes.
No sane person should be questioning that. And then I would say the same thing in terms of so much else in government. If someone is getting discriminated against, take an education, really, like a kid who has a disability and the school is not functioning for that kid, or the kid is in a wheelchair and the school that the kid goes to, she's on the fourth floor and there's no elevator. You can't do that to a child. So there is a way in which a parent can then say, this is not fair for my kid. That's what government should do. So we have to figure out a way to balance between having effective, efficient government and not overly bureaucratic and bureaucratized government. So that is how most people experience it. What we're seeing right now with President Trump, and we saw it with President Reagan as well, but this time, it is much more excessive. They want to get
Mhm.
rid of all the rules. And what essentially then happens is you go back to a situation of kings and monarchs where the people who have the power keep the power and everyone else has nothing. And because how do regular people then navigate that? How do you still have Social Security? How do you still have Medicare? How do you have a basic safety net? And with AI and with all of this technology coming in, all of a sudden the tech companies then in some ways become the mini government because they're the ones that own the data, they're the ones that have the machines, and they're the ones that basically control information. And if you're not having guardrails around that, about disinformation, about privacy, about making sure that the human being is in control of the machines, then we are in a world that we have never been in before. So right now, regulation, I would say of all the things of that bill that is the most dangerous, this piece that doesn't allow states, after the federal government refused to do it, to actually regulate to make sure it keeps its citizens safe, that's the most dangerous part of this big ugly bill.
So if you are a person listening to this podcast and you are freaked out, what should you be doing?
You should be calling and writing your senator right now, your governor right now, particularly if you're in a red state, and say, do not pass this bill. Do not do this to us. Do not make us less safe. Do not hurt our American dream.
Could you explain why marching and organizing, like, does
Yeah,
if
I
you're
was
a person listening to this podcast and you are like, I don't know if I should go to this protest, there's going to be a July 4th protest now. Tell us why you should.
let me put my civics teacher hat on, Molly. And look, I am honored. Let me just also say I'm honored that my union is the fastest growing union now in the AFL-CIO. We're the second largest nursing union now. We're the largest higher ed union now. So what we're saying is this, and this goes to this question. When things are not working and they're not fair and they're not working for people, and you have anger rather than aspiration dominating the public discord in terms of America. I teased before about America is the land of the free and the home of the brave. I've been rereading the Constitution and rereading the Declaration of Independence and those words about aspiration and about opportunity. They didn't, the founders didn't always do the right thing, as we all know. But those words, opportunity, freedom, justice, liberty. And so they are moored in the people. We elect representatives to try to do our work, but they're moored in the people. And when those representatives, whether it's the president or whether it's the Congress, was supposed to be three branches of government and then two systems, the federal system and states. States did some stuff, the federal system did some stuff. That's our constitutional democracy. When they're not doing the right thing, there's two choices. You can give up. You can say, okay, I'm not going to deal, or you can fight. And frankly, what we learned 250 years ago from the colonists is they fought. That's the only reason we have our country. They fought the monarchy. They started an army 250 years ago to fight the monarchy, to have no taxation without representation, to have freedom. And so if we don't fight, we're not going to have freedom. We're not going to be able to give our kids and our grandkids a country where we can speak like you and I are speaking right now. And I often say to my conservative friends, I want to have a country that we have freedom so you and I can fight with each other, so we can fight about policy. But if the people don't fight right now, we've learned this from history. Every time you go from a democracy to a dictatorship, or you go or you see dictatorship, or you see authoritarianism, it's because the people weren't on the street and didn't fight. And so the second piece I would say is this: Donald Trump creates a lot of fear.
Yeah.
Remember what he said right before the protests, it's going to be met by huge force. Every other word out of his mouth is fear and bullying and fear and bullying. When there's one person, you can bully one person. If there are millions of people on the streets like we had this weekend, people then see each other.
Mhm.
It creates courage. Courage becomes contagious. And
Yeah.
for everyone to see the millions of people that were on the streets this weekend, millions, what it says is, regardless of what you think about labor unions or public education, I'll fight the fight about public education. I'll fight the fight about labor unions. Regardless of what you think about all of that, or SNAP, or of so many other issues, what is enduring in America is that we have to have the voice and the right to have our lives. And that's why we have to fight. That democracy gives us the right to fight for a better life. That democracy gives us the right to fight for our families. That democracy gives us the right to have a future. And that's why we have to be on the street, because Donald Trump doesn't care about it. And so many people in the Senate and the House don't care about it. So we, the people, have to take that power again that we have together and fight to make sure our kids and our grandkids and our great grandkids have a country where they are free.
Thank you, Randi Weingarten.